Alright, so this is not gonna be the typical video where I share tips and tricks about project management. Instead, we are turning the spotlight on the other side, the moments that went wrong. My biggest mistakes as a project manager. I've made a ton of mistakes in my project management career. I've stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I've been too blunt and got myself into trouble. And I've picked fights I didn't need to pick. All of these moments were uncomfortable, but all of them taught me valuable lessons and helped me become a better leader. The reason I'm sharing these mistakes is to show you that when you have a lot of responsibility, you do make mistakes. So by walking you through my own blunders, I hope you'll see these patterns early and avoid these mistakes and be a little kinder to yourself when things don't go as planned. Mistake number 1, not providing regular updates. When I was new to project management, I made the classic rookie mistake. I didn't communicate enough. Technically, I was a project assistant, but acting as a de facto project leader. We were rolling out a new IT system and I was completely absorbed by technical issues. And back then, I didn't know that part of my job was to keep people in the loop. For me, everything that was happening made perfect sense. I knew what was going on. And looking back, I realized I was also quite intimidated. Sending updates to a big group of people, many of them department leaders, felt scary. And often I thought there wasn't much to report. So why bother sending out updates? Well, that was a big mistake, because while I was busy working through problems, the rest of the organization was wondering what was going on. And a few group leaders even assumed the project had been put on hold. And they started withdrawing their resources, just like that. So after a few tough conversations, I was encouraged to send out a short update every Friday. Just a simple email, what we had accomplished in that week, the issues we were currently facing, and what tasks were planned for the next. And almost immediately, things got better. People were engaged again, group leaders knew what was going on, and they could plan their teams accordingly. So the lesson for me was, updates aren't just unpleasant paperwork for the project manager. They are one of the simplest and most powerful tools you have to keep everyone engaged, confident, and aligned. So even if you feel you don't have anything big to report, send your update anyway. Mistake number 2, letting others dictate the schedule. Same project as before, my first one. We had been through a series of technical problems that forced us to redo some of our tasks. Most of the work was done by the software vendor, whose software we were rolling out across our organization. After we had finally made it through one of those crises, the big question came up: what's the new go-live date? The original one was no longer realistic, and everyone knew that. It was already late October, and the year was quickly running out. From my point of view, February would have been realistic. But management, frustrated with the delays, insisted on pushing for a system go live before Christmas. Looking back, that made no sense at all. I mean, who introduces a new system right before the holidays, when all the technical staff are about to go on vacation? But, well, I let myself get pulled along. We followed the steering board's decision and aimed for a go-live in mid-December. We did not make that date, but not for the reason that you may think. When my colleague Jürgen tried to install the software on our production system, he kept hitting the same issue. The installation kept crashing with the same cryptic error message. After several failed attempts, we reached out to the vendor. And a deeper analysis on their part revealed that their software had a compatibility issue with the processor we were using. We could not believe it. We were banging our heads against the wall, being so close to the finish line, and suddenly a stupid compatibility bug threw us off track. We had to replan. The issue was escalated to the CEO of the vendor. They eventually completed the rollout in the following year on their own expenses. But it was a painful experience for everybody. Looking back, I should not have let others dictate the schedule. But my mistake was also that I had handed the major part of the project planning to the software vendor, which meant I didn't have the data to push back when management insisted on an unrealistic go-live date. Would we have met a later go-live date? It's hard to say, but at least we would have had more buffer. And that buffer is so important in project management. Mistake number 3. Underestimating cultural differences. I always thought I was pretty good at dealing with people from other cultures. Coming from a binational family has always helped me in building connections across cultures, so I thought I was pretty well prepared for my first project abroad. But during a project in Turkey, I stepped right into a cultural trap. I was leading a major software rollout at one of our plants over there. It was a critical project with a lot of impact on local processes and local organization. By that point, I had already done several projects like this, and I had developed my own routine. One thing that had proven to be really helpful, working directly with the plant manager instead of going through a slow reporting chain. So I followed the same approach in Turkey. Whenever there were important decisions to be made, I reached out directly to the plant manager. But after a few calls, I started noticing that something felt off. He was distant, short-tempered, and not very supportive. Just cold. So I knew something was wrong, I just couldn't figure out what. 2 weeks later, the mystery was solved. My boss came to me and said, "Hey, I just got an invite to a meeting with the Turkish leadership team. Agenda item, unacceptable behavior of the project leader." And I was like, what? I had no idea what I had done wrong. My manager just laughed, shrugging it off as politics. The meeting was held without me, but afterwards my boss gave me the details. Apparently my way of skipping the local hierarchy had rubbed some people the wrong way. The local managers felt bypassed, like I didn't take them seriously. But that was never my intention. In our past projects, the local team always was happy when I handled things directly and when they didn't have to come to yet another meeting. But this time was different. So I changed my approach, started involving the local team and tried to follow the local reporting chain as much as possible. And so everybody was happy again and we finished the implementation successfully on time. Looking back, I should have sat down with the local team early and talk about roles and expectations, just to make sure that my approach would be acceptable to them. Maybe I should have also grabbed a book on intercultural collaboration. And I probably would have read that Turkey is one of those countries where hierarchy matters a lot, where a regular employee normally doesn't engage directly with top executives. Mistake number 4, the angry email. Yet another implementation project. We were in a critical phase. Technically, things were going well, but on the business side, we still had a lot to clarify. Problem was, the business colleagues were very hard to get a hold of. They seemed to have a million other priorities and our project was given very little attention. And meanwhile, I had a clear go-live date that came closer and closer, and I was getting nervous. One morning we were supposed to meet with the local business team, with a critical person, but this colleague didn't show up. All I got was an email from his teammates explaining why he couldn't make it. And to me, the reason sounded questionable. My first thought was, come on, this is nonsense. Normally I'm pretty patient and understanding, but that morning I got really mad. So what did I do? I hit reply all. Answered that email and wrote something along the lines of, I don't buy that. That sounds like... And I also CC'd management. What followed was a storm. The business team was furious and my harsh tone really upset people, especially in that culture that valued harmony. So I'm not proud of that email. I was under high pressure and this is where these things tend to happen. Afterwards I got a few emails criticizing my tone. I was honestly surprised by how strong the reaction was. But I also wanted to calm down the situation. So I immediately sent out an apology email. A proper one. I took full responsibility, apologized for my tone and gave a bit of context that we were under heavy pressure and I reacted emotionally. Here is where it gets interesting. So remember, I sent out a harsh email, management saw it, and then I followed up with a personal apology that everyone got to see. You'd think that my reputation was damaged at that point, but what happened next was really eye-opening. The colleagues became more engaged and more committed. People showed up, contributed, seemed to care more. And second, strangely enough, I felt more respected. People were warmer, enthusiastic. When I was around, there was even a bit of admiration in the room, which confused me at first. But I kept thinking about it and I realized it was probably down to courage. I owned my mistake instead of hiding behind excuses or waiting for things to blow over. We never know exactly what people thought, but I think the interesting lesson is making a mistake and admitting it will actually make people trust you more. Mistake number 5, waiting too long to escalate. In our factory projects, we always had a local project manager on site to drive things locally so that the technical implementation could move forward smoothly. It was a tough job, no doubt, which required good people skill and most of all persistence. In this particular project, the appointed local project leader was a great guy, lots of experience, communicative and well connected in the organization. So overall a great fit. And as I would always do, I scheduled weekly progress meetings to discuss progress, help where I could, and together plan the next steps. As we entered the critical stage, it became apparent that the local team wasn't making any real progress. Overdue tasks started piling up, decisions weren't being made, and time was quickly running out. My co-project manager kept telling me, tomorrow, I'll sort it out, don't worry. But tomorrow turned into next week, and next week became the week after next week. We were getting dangerously close to running out of time. So what do you do in that situation? Here's what I did. You remind people, you highlight the risks, and you ask where things stand, even though you are 5,000 miles away. At some point, I decided to bring in the local plant manager and share my concerns. I asked him to push things from his side. As he himself dug deeper, it became clear that actually nothing had been done locally. Our local project lead was clearly overwhelmed by the role. He hadn't even started many of the tasks. But we had to escalate the whole situation via our management, and that finally brought in some motion. The local leadership was instructed to come up with an action plan within 24 hours. The plant director brought in more capable people. In the end, we completed the project successfully. So what could I have done better? I should have dug deeper early to see if the team was actually making progress. I should have spoken to different people who were also on the project to see if the news that I got was actually true. Basically doing a bit of detective work. I definitely should have escalated earlier. That would have saved us time and a lot of headache. Okay, so these were my top mistakes as a project manager, and these were just the highlights. Trust me, I've made tons of other mistakes along the way. But before I wrap up, I want to share a few thoughts that might change how you look at failure and how you face your next project. The truth is, no course, no book, no certificate will prepare you for project management in the real world. The only way to get better is through experience. You take responsibility, you step up, and you learn while you're in the middle of it. So don't wait until you feel ready for a bigger project. Alright, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. You're amazing. I'm Adrian, and I'll see you around.